Welcome to the latest installment of INcourage, with Rusty John. In this episode, Rusty sits down with humanitarian, entrepreneur, and visionary, Gaia Calcaterra, just a few short days after she has returned from her most recent trip to Africa where she works with the Gratitude Project. Please enjoy as Gaia shares and, may you be encouraged. Welcome now Rusty John, and Gaia Calcaterra.
Good afternoon, online friends and followers. This is Rusty John, and I'm coming to you this afternoon with In Gratitude live from the Center for Inner Wisdom. And I'm joined today by a very special guest who is actually just back from Africa on a humanitarian mission. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Gaia Calcaterra. Did I pronounce that right, Gaia?
You did. That's perfect, Rusty. Thank you so much. Well done.
Gaia and I know each other through the Center for Spiritual Living next door.
Correct.
And Gaia is the founder of a number of initiatives that are all humanitarian in nature and that are just mind-blowing. One of them is the Gratitude Project. Tell me a little bit about who you are and the Gratitude Project and how this whole initiative came to you.
Thanks, Rusty. Well, originally I was born and raised in South Africa, so that's my home country. I've since lived and traveled all over the world, like in Italy and in China and Australia, and I've been here in the
You're
US.
Italian, right?
Correct,
Calcaterra
yes.
sounds pretty Italian.
For 10 years now. And the Gratitude Project was something that we started almost 3 years ago in 2016, and I reconnected with a dear friend of mine who I'd lost touch with for about 20 years, and
Oh, wow.
His name is Hannes, and at the time that I'd met him 20 years before, he was the manager of a very upmarket, trendy restaurant in Johannesburg and had a completely different lifestyle, and I was able to reconnect with him through Facebook, funnily enough, through a mutual friend, and found out that he was living out in the middle of the most rural of rural areas, helping the poorest of the poor and the sickest of the sick. And so I reconnected with him and decided to help. And
I want to stop you right there because I think it's important, particularly from this Western Americanized perspective, that we take a look at what you mean when you say the poorest of the poor and the sickest of the sick. Because what we think of, particularly on this side of the ocean, as poor, is really wealthy by any standard over there. So talk to me about that.
That's a very good point, Rusty. Thank you for pointing that out. So I would say the poorest of the poor in South Africa, typical cases that we work with, for example, are children of child-headed households. Okay, that's
child-headed households.
Correct. That's our main focus, and we are committed to really no child standing alone.
What is a child-headed household? Is it just like it sounds, like a 12-year-old running a household?
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is typically the parents of the children have come across the border from Mozambique or Zimbabwe or Swaziland into South Africa looking for better life situation or work or whatever it is. And what happens is the parents both pass away, typically of HIV/AIDS or tuberculosis. And what happens is it leaves the children, sometimes 3, 4, or 5 children, with the oldest one typically being in their early teens, to look after the household. That means take care of all the younger siblings, oftentimes an aging grandparent, with no ID documents, no resources, no food, no education, and oftentimes the kids are HIV positive themselves. So most of the children that we work with live in a shack that's made up of 4 pallets on a piece of dirt, and it's covered in plastic, and that's it. I mean, there's no access to running water, there's no access to food, and not having ID documents means that they can't apply for government assistance or formal education.
Right. So my mind is just blown. How did this come about with you getting involved in this with your friend and
Well, we essentially, I reconnected with Hannes, and then here in the States, I got together a group of volunteers, and again, we didn't have very many fundraising skills, and we had zero budget, but we sat at a table and we brainstormed, and we decided on what needed to be created, and it became a 100% volunteer project, which it is still to this day. And every single part of it, the logo, the website, the fundraising, the 11/11 event that we put together, was all volunteer based, 100%. And actually, even to this day, 98.5% of every cent that we raise goes directly to South Africa.
That's amazing. You've been featured on NPR.
Yeah.
You're pretty much everywhere. What is the one thing that you want people to know about the Gratitude Project? And I know my friend Kim is the one who told me last year when you started, gathering luggage and stuff to do this trip to Africa and to take clothes and stuff, that brought this into my awareness. But what is the one thing that you want people to know about this project and how the work that you're doing?
Well, I'd say the most important thing is, first of all, like looking at my own life and your own life from a perspective of gratitude. And, sometimes when it seems like we're suffering or things are difficult, a simple looking around and just acknowledging what you do have and really how much there is to be grateful for. The fact that we have running water and electricity and clean clothes and food and the internet. The vast majority of the planet has no access to any of that. And I think it's everyone's duty at the end of the day, whether it's helping with the Gratitude Project or helping your neighbor or a friend or whatever capacity you choose. I think it's our duty to be of service and contribute and help. That's it.
I think it's pretty amazing how all of this came about for you. You're a pretty spiritual person, and you had an encounter with God. You said, okay, show me, and God showed you. But it's interesting because your experience is very similar to mine, in that you discovered that God is not this angry white man in the sky with a pitchfork in one hand and a lightning bolt in the other, waiting to jab you in the ass when you do something.
Yeah.
Tell me about this idea of God and what God is to Gaia and what God is to the Gratitude Project.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. And it was actually a very, very particular and moving experience, and it happened on the 4th of May 2014 for me, and it was an experience where I was in the presence of God. And this is coming from a person who was raised Catholic but really has no interest in religion, and like you were saying, it wasn't in the presence of this man that was nailed to a cross or any other kind of figure. It was being in the presence of this magnificent energy. I'll call it energy for lack of a word,
right?
Because
right.
It's really all-encompassing, and it's this absolutely beautiful energy and presence that has created all of us, and that we are all part of already, and that we belong to. And I mean, to take that a little bit further, I think if you trust it enough and sort of allow it to lead you as opposed to you leading it,
wow,
that it will direct you where you need to be directed.
How did you come into that knowledge? How did you come in? Because for me, I know I personally, I have a hard time getting out of my own way sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and I'm trying to, remove ego from things. And damn it, it's a full-time job.
It is.
I can't do anything else because I'm so focused on trying to get out of my own way. And my best thinking is what led me into addiction, what led me down to, all of these roads that I didn't need to be going down. How did you get into that quiet space and just, really come into the awareness? Like, how do you do that every day? Get into that space where you just get out of your way. And honestly, miraculous things just happen for you. You walk down the sidewalk and people are just drawn to you. How does that happen?
Well, I have to be honest, it doesn't happen all day, and it's a struggle, just like it is with you. I mean, I do a lot of reading, a lot of meditating. A book that stood out a lot for me was The Pathwork to Self-Transformation by Eva Pierrakos, which was like a channeled book. And it was there that I became very present to this force that is everywhere, and that you can use it or give it over and let it use you. But it does not by any means happen all day and every day. It's a struggle. We're all busy. There's tons of things to do. There's responsibilities. And yeah, I try and go quiet every now and then. It's difficult to quieten your mind. I've done 10 days of Vipassana silent meditation. That was torture for 7 days of it until I got into the 3 days of silence.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it's a work in progress all the time. I wish I had a magical formula for it. I don't.
It's amazing because Dr. Chris, who is the leader of our church, he always says that, you know, God or Spirit is in, about, through, and for us. And we get so caught up in, you know, making ourselves wrong for things over and over again, thinking that we know best.
Yep.
Or for me, I mean, I know I typically do know best, just in case there's any questions. But
I might have to compete with
you
you
might
on
have
that
to
one.
compete. But you've had a pretty amazing experience in this form. You've had a lot of success. Pretty much, you have a Midas touch. When you touch things, they just turn to gold. One of them was...
Thank you. It doesn't always feel like that. It feels like pushing a rock uphill sometimes. But.
And good, because, you know, if it was easy, we might not want to do it. We might get bored with things if they were easy. I know for me, you know, I feel like I have to attract a little bit of struggle to myself in order to validate it. But you created something. You are a student of Landmark. You're a student of the Gratitude Project. You are committed to living a fully self-expressed life.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your project from SELP. That an SELP, Self-Expression Leadership Program in Landmark, is something where you create something and you literally have to remove yourself from it. It's almost like The Economist.
Yep.
You know, you're not allowed to have a byline.
Yep.
You know, you write the whole story and you get no credit for it.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Which was really the hardest part of all of it from an ego perspective. So yeah, I mean, Landmark was amazing to me. I've done it on and off for a couple of years. I coached the self-expression and leadership for a number of years. And as Rusty was saying, it's a project or a program, a 3-month program where you learn self-expression and leadership through the creation of a community project. And so I signed up for the first one, and basically I wasn't sure of what project I was going to do. But I went to a sort of networking event one day, and a woman gave me her business card, and it was Abby Moshe from Tomorrow's Rainbow. And she helps children. It's an organization here in Broward County, and she helps children go through the grieving process. And so I went out to one of her volunteer orientations, and I was so moved by what this woman was doing and her whole story and what she had created. And for me, grief was something that I understood very well. 8 years prior, my boyfriend of 4 years in South Africa, Paul, they had broken into his house and he was shot in the head at 31 years old. And, you know, for me, that started this whole process of grief, which I had never ever experienced or lost anyone close to me. And so I felt very connected to what these children were going through and what was happening. And so I spoke to her afterwards and asked her what she needed. And she said she needed $25,000 to hire a full-time clinician. And I agreed, not having any fundraising experience or any experience in that field whatsoever. But you know what they say in Landmark.
She said to you, I need $25,000. You turned to her and you said, consider it done.
Yeah, consider it done.
Not having a penny, did not have, you
nothing.
Went out and raised, made happen.
No budget, no nothing. And I'm not gonna lie, I left that day and I got in the car and I went, Like, what have I just done? And I freaked out.
My dad would say that was an episode where you let your alligator mouth overload your
Yeah.
hummingbird ass.
Exactly.
Happens to me all the time.
We'll go with that.
But you made it happen.
I did. My first sort of port of call is I was part of a Toastmasters group, and someone had cancelled their speech that night. It was a Wednesday night, so I gave an impromptu speech about how embarrassed I was that I'd overcommitted. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. If there was anyone in the room that could even help me just a little bit, I'd be really grateful. And I got back to my desk after the speech, and there were all these little white notes on the table, and they were all, tell me what you need, count me in, consider it done. And before we knew it, we had this army of volunteers, and we started giving speeches all over the place. And
so in a moment of just sheer oh shit vulnerability, authenticity, you literally stepped up to a microphone and said,
I actually felt
need.
like crying, like how embarrassed I was and how overwhelmed I was, because I mean $25,000 is a decent amount of money to raise in 3 months with nothing to go from. And so we started holding meetings every week, and people just started coming out of the woodwork. We had people volunteer to build websites and logos and marketing plans and banners, and so we created the event called the Hope Floats event, which is actually happening tomorrow, and it's in its 7th year running, and it's happening at Huizenga Plaza in Fort Lauderdale.
I just want you to sit with that for a minute, because a project that had never existed, that was just a grain of a thought, that was a need that was expressed, that Gaia said, let me run with this need. You've now met that need every year, removed yourself from it. You get no credit for it.
A little bit.
They
mentioned my name.
There, you get to know, right? But for 7 years now, you've met that need, and you've carried that banner and given them something that they can run with.
Yeah, and as you were saying, like the design of the Landmark program is that for 3 months you create the project, you make it operational, and it's all about being selfless and being out in the world. And so at the end of the 3 months, you've created this thing which feels like your baby by the time you're done with it. And at the end of the 3 months, you have to remove your name from all of it and give it away, which we gave it to Tomorrow's Rainbow. And really, they have been the heroes in the last 7 years, because they've just taken it like from better to better all the time. And it's such a gift to stand there each year on the New River and see this all taking place and having a life of its own out in the world and generating funds and helping people. And there's nothing special about me. That's
amazing. Not true. That's totally not true.
This is like accessible to absolutely everyone. And this is why I started coaching the Self-Expression and Leadership program afterwards, because I came to the realization that what I was doing was everyone could do it. Anyone and everyone. And it was such a gift afterwards to see people like realizing their full potential and seeing what they were capable of, and that they were capable of creating projects and being a contribution. And I mean, we did some amazing projects like helping the White Lions in Africa, or taking makeup artists to women in distress, and helping women feel beautiful again. And it's a gift, and it's accessible to everyone.
When do you sleep?
8 hours a night.
You get 8 hours. You do all of this good. You have a job. You have businesses, and you still find 8 hours a day to sleep.
Yeah, and there's another big lesson that I learned in Landmark, is that it's about, I'll never ever forget this line. It was leaders create leaders. That's the job of a leader, to create other leaders. So in every single project that I work with, I'm surrounded by incredible people that take things on, and they become leaders of that role. Like, for example, a friend that we have in common, Kim, I mean, she took it on herself to collect suitcase full of medicine and clothing, and that we were collecting for our last trip to South Africa. And so it's being surrounded by all people like that. It's absolutely a team effort. There's no way that I could do it by myself. And as Landmark says, I'm with people with big hearts that are playing a big game. That's it, exactly like you are.
Tell me about these. You brought in a bag full, and we have a number of them set up. I'll put some video up. These are all handmade bracelets that are made by people that you serve in
Correct.
Africa.
Yep, in South Africa.
Tell me about these.
They're just like little decorative bracelets that we have made down there, and then we bring them over here and we use them at fundraising events. People purchase them and then the money gets sent back to South Africa. And mostly what we try and do is get reoccurring donors. That's the most important thing to us. We have a program where with $11.11,
11.11 for those of you who are into that number, you know what it means. $11.11 feeds a family of 4 to 6 for a week.
Correct.
So tell me about that program.
Well, it's we did a calculation. Obviously now the exchange rate has changed a little bit since then, but basically yes, with $11.11 we are able to buy bags of beans, maize meal, a little bit of detergent, but enough to keep these kids, particularly the ones from child-headed households, going for like a week or two. And you know, Hannes takes it out personally, delivers it to them. He finds these kids that are out in the middle of nowhere a lot of the times, and he manages to get them in a stable position where they he provides them with medication, clothing, food, and then where they don't have ID documents, he is able to enroll them in informal schools where at least they have a basic education, you know, that they can start looking for jobs and things like that. So that's where it all goes. And yeah, I cannot stress the importance of, you know, even a small donation like that. It's huge for us.
I have been very open about my HIV status. And the bulk, the vast majority of people that you work with over there are HIV positive children who have outlived their HIV positive parents who
Correct.
have passed away. Tell me a little bit about that work and what that's like for you and some of the struggles that you face, because particularly bringing Western medicine into
Sure.
South Africa,
Yep.
it can be a challenge. What is that like?
Well, the problem is huge in South Africa, and I have to say a lot of the times going down there, it feels hopeless because just the sheer size and magnitude of the problem. But I think also it's about looking at the problem in bite sizes and just, you know, if you can help 1 or 2 or 3 and go from there. With the Gratitude Project house, we bought it and rehabbed it.
So what, the Gratitude Project house, you actually have, the Gratitude Project has a facility in Africa.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, we raised the funds here in the US with a group of amazing volunteers. Also, again, with huge hearts and just, wow, they went out of their way. And so we raised enough money to purchase a property and rehab it. And that initially housed 8 children. Some of them are HIV positive. And then recently we raised more funds to add on an addition that is another 3 rooms that we've built, which houses another 4 children, plus an office for HIV testing and tuberculosis testing, which we offer all free of charge. And then, yeah, the AIDS and HIV, we offer free testing to patients. We work in conjunction with clinics in the area who are hugely helpful to us. We provide antiretrovirals, and obviously, like you said, it being a Western medicine, there is always an issue that we come up and a challenge that we come up against, and that it's African culture oftentimes doesn't agree, or traditional healers don't necessarily agree with the antiretroviral route. So,
what do you mean when you say traditional healers?
Traditional healers are medicine men in South Africa,
Okay.
and so it's traditional healing with herbs and medicines and things like that. And antiretrovirals are not seen as part of that.
Okay.
And so oftentimes where we are able to get patients on antiretrovirals and they're able to lead a successful, healthy life, oftentimes, unfortunately, a traditional healer will suggest against it, and so
Right.
the patients stop taking them, and then there's a decline in their health.
Okay. What is a struggle that we don't even think about here in the United States that is an everyday reality that you see very frequently in Africa?
Geez, there are so many of them, but I'll give you an example of how sometimes I don't even realize the struggles in Africa. And this is coming from someone who was born and raised there. I remember the first time I went to visit the Gratitude Project area, which was 3 years ago, I had brought a whole bunch of suitcases of donations, and one of the donations was a couple of boxes of toothbrushes and toothpaste, which one would think is an ordinary item that you need on a daily basis here.
Right.
And I took it out to these rural areas to donate it, and there was literally no use for it, because when you don't have water to brush your teeth with, and you're not even eating food because there is no food, it makes the toothbrush and toothpaste redundant.
It's obsolete,
Yeah.
redundant before it even gets
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Things like that.
That's like taking ibuprofen and you don't have the water to swallow the pill
Yeah.
with. Well, you don't even think about that. What is a challenge that we can help you with? What's a way that we can get involved to make life better?
The easiest way, it always comes down to funding. We've had plenty of people donate, medication, clothing.
But it takes money to get that
yeah,
over there.
It exactly, and it's quite a process to get it, assuming it actually gets into the right hands. So we have people on the ground in South Africa who manage the funds that we send. They report everything, and it goes directly to the people. There is no faster way, and the reoccurring donations are a godsend to us, because they allow us to do a little bit of forward planning, just a little bit of strategy. Like, for example, at the moment, we also service 900 patients a month across the border in Mozambique.
900 patients a month. Okay.
Yeah, we
Wow.
employ 4 home-based care workers in Mozambique, and between the 4 of them, they take care of 900 patients. And when I say 900 patients, these are not patients that are sitting in a hospital or all in the same place. These home-based care workers walk for miles and miles and miles to go and seek out elderly people, sick people, children from child-headed households who have no access to anything. They find them, they locate them, and we start recording, like, basically what is happening. They provide them with food, with medication, with clothing. And so what we really need now in Mozambique is at least a little office or a little room where we can store additional medication and food, and where the home-based care workers can meet. So that is what we're working on next.
How can people become a regular recurring donor?
You can sign up to on our website. There's
What's your website?
It's gratitudeinaction.org.
Gratitudeinaction.org, or you can also find them on Facebook as the Gratitude Project.
Yes, as the Gratitude Project, and actually they're almost daily updates of what's going on, and so you can see how the money's being spent. It's a great community, and just to join it and even just become part of the family, it's amazing people that are running it and working on it.
What's your favorite thing to do in the downtime that you have? The 8 minutes a day that you are not, what's your favorite thing to do?
I love doing all of this stuff. I mean, it's fulfilling. It feels like it's not that it has to be done, but that it's something that should be done.
What makes your heart sing?
All of this type of thing, like being a contribution and being of service, and having the ability to do it.
And what is that? How does that make you feel? Because we know this experience is all about chasing a feeling. What's the feeling that you chase the most often? Instead of chasing the thing that's going to bring you the feeling, what's the feeling that you chase? For me, it's joy. I just want to be happy. I just want to have fun.
This is no, for me it's peace.
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 And what does that feel like?
And I have to tell you something about joy. I really have to share this with you. Joy
Okay.
is what you're after. Because every time I go down to South Africa, okay, in the midst of all this poverty and sickness, and it is, I would actually like to show you some videos about it.
Yeah, I'd love
Is these children have this incredible joy. All they want to do is dance and sing and hold your hand and hug you, and it's just, you know, it's such a contrast because there's nothing and yet there's so much joy, and in so many countries there's everything and there's so little joy. And then sometimes I go down there and I think maybe they have a lot to teach us as opposed to the other way around.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that in the midst of, you know, a landscape of nothing is a bounty of joy? What do they know that we don't?
I think that in those situations you become a lot more reliant on community, on friendships, on sharing, on being together. And actually in Africa they have that famous word, Ubuntu, which is I am because you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so like your joy doesn't exist
Repeat
without
that word to me, Ubuntu?
Ubuntu,
Ubuntu.
U-B-U-N-T-U.
Okay, and that means?
I am because you are.
I am because you are, okay.
Yeah. And so there's a very, very big sense of community that oftentimes isn't present in a lot of other countries. We've become sort of very isolated and behind our computers, and everyone seems to fend for themselves, and there seems to be a degree of separation between people. Whereas here you're very much reliant on each other.
It's amazing to me that we live in a society where literally everything is at our fingertips, and yet all we ever focus on is lack.
Yeah.
That there's not going to be enough. That if I give you love, that means I've got to steal love away from somebody else to give you that attention. And in these cultures where there is nothing vying for their attention, they have all of this, you know, I keep reading about this joy and this expression and this level of just gratitude with just being and being quiet.
Yeah.
And, you know, the simple things like the sound of a ball bouncing, you know, that drives us crazy when we hear it outside of our, you know, on the concrete outside of our, but how, it seems like that they've got something, like all of these options, all of these distractions, all of these things that we give our attention to actually steals our joy a little bit, I think. And I think that when we don't have all those options, maybe it's that the options that are the problem.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, to bring it to a Florida example, I actually see a lot of it happening, for example, when we have a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden people put down all those things, and it starts becoming about helping your neighbor and sharing what food you have, and, you know, sitting by candlelight and talking to each other and that type of thing. There's a different sense of community and help and love for each other that sets in when all of that happens.
How often do you find that when you get out of your own way and when you stop trying to look for the solutions, do you realize that you have everything that you need? Like even when I try to pull things together for myself, when I slow down and get out of that frantic state of I need this, this, and this, and I really slow down and allow things to be, I realize, wait a minute, to do what I need to do, there's a lot of things that would be nice to haves, but are not need to haves. Mm-hmm. And to do what I need to do when I need to do it, everything is always there. Yeah,
I agree 100%, but the key is getting out of that sort of frantic wormhole, which is, that's the challenge, and I have that challenge too all the time.
And it just seems like, you know, when we worry about the lighting and the curtains and the flowers and the, you know, literally when it's time to sit down, everything just seems to happen. You know, like literally, everything just seems to happen. If you could leave people today with one thought that would help people to have a better existence with where they are today, what would that one thing be?
I would say, going back to the gratitude project, I would say I actually downloaded this little app that I use. It's called Gratitude app. There's plenty of them, and every single morning I write down, it prompts you, but it's 10 things that you are looking forward to happening that day. And in the evening it prompts you again to write the 10 things that, or 10 or 20, whatever it is that you were grateful for. And it has been the most amazing practice for me, because you tend to always look forward and focus on problems and focus on issues without just kind of like reflecting on the day and just like the miracles that happened in it every single day. And it starts like shifting everything, and it starts becoming this looking at everything with a sense of awe and gratitude, as opposed to disappointment and upset.
What does gratitude mean to you?
It's that just being hugely grateful for everything, and there's so much when you start getting.
What is grateful? What does that mean?
When you start getting into the details of it, like how much I have, like the fact that we are sitting here right now and everything's working from a physical point of view, the fact that I'm saying things and it's these waves going through the air, and the miracle of your ears being able to pick that up and decode it and understand it, and it's just miracles all around. I mean, look at this. And so it's a huge gratitude for all of that, and the stopping to just actually take it in and see it for what it is, as opposed to what it's not.
And what do you get at the end of the day? What do you get out of all of this? This and these bracelets and what do you get out of it?
There's nothing to get. It's just like being here having this conversation with you.
Well, Gaia, you are an amazing young. What? Say it. What? What were you gonna say?
That's it. I wish I had some other better, like, amazing.
So you're really doing all this for nothing.
Yeah.
That's gratitude.
There's nothing to get out of any of it, aside from being a support and contribution and doing what you can to help.
Being fully engaged, fully committed to life as it unfolds.
Yeah.
Gaia, we can find more information at your website is again.
It's gratitudeinaction.org.
And that's GRATITUDENIN action ACTION.org. You can also find her on the Gratitude Project on Facebook. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me this afternoon.
Thank you to you.
Please, I want to say one thing. You put yourself through school to get your MBA, and you're using all of that education and knowledge as well for all of this good.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, even students who are at school, I've just completed an MBA at Nova Southeastern University, and I used one of the classes to write the strategic marketing plan for the Gratitude Project. So even if you're in school, I mean, there's so many opportunities to be able to help and be a contribution that is huge and very impactful to other people all over the world.
Thanks, Gaia. I'm Rusty John. This has been INcourage. I hope you've enjoyed us this afternoon, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks so much. Namaste and Om Shanti.
Thank you, and I'm going to give you a hug.
I love you so much. Oh my.
Thank you for joining Rusty John for this installment of INcourage. To learn more about Gaia Calcaterra or the Gratitude Project, please visit them online at www.gratitudeinaction.org, where you can donate, become a recurring automatic giver, and sign up for their newsletter. Stay tuned for our next episode, and be sure to follow us on YouTube, Facebook and other social media formats. For Rusty John, Gaia Calcaterra, and the entire Expanding Consciousness studio team of producers and volunteers, I'm Matthew Polly, saying goodbye for now, and may you remain in courage.